Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Thanks for joining us after the long weekend. Appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us this morning. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 will honor and respect the land, the people, and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people, and we must honor the treaties in mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. As an ally to Indigenous people and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their stories on their terms. And just a couple of housekeeping notes really quickly. First, this workshop's being recorded if you missed the recording announcement, and it will be available for viewing after today's session. It's just going to be on the RTO9's website, which is just rto9.ca. There's going to be opportunity for questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom, which can be done anonymously if you're concerned, or you can just put them in the chat screen at that side of your screen there. We're going to be keeping an eye on it. Corinne's really good at asking some questions to get you guys engaged, so be sure to be in the chat box. And then following today's session, you're going to get an email, and it's just going to have a quick 2-minute survey link in there. If you're able to spend some time to review the session, that would be really great. And now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our lovely facilitator this morning. This is Corinne from Mellow Brew Marketing. Good morning, Corinne.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to start by making sure that I can properly share before we get going.
Always a good,
Oh, it just
always a
took
good
there.
process.
That is last time it gave me grief, so I want to make sure. I don't know if I'm still popping up on screens here,
You
but it
are,
disappeared. Okay,
everything's
I'm
perfect.
disappearing. Zoom is always strange. So, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I don't know why. Are we still seeing this the same way? Are you seeing me in Canva right now?
I'm seeing you in Canva. Yep.
I don't know why that did that. Let's go and fix that up. There you go.
Oh, perfect. You're good to go.
My goodness. Me teaching all of you things about these things. It's a good thing I'm not teaching you the technical things about these tools. Okay, so today we're jumping into a conversation about creating engaging content, and I think it's top of mind often. We're often thinking of how can we do better? How can we better serve our communities? How can we get more people to like and share and post the things that we're doing? And I know that's very important and valuable to all business owners. But there are some things that we can do to make that a little bit easier. And so we're going to go through that today. Now, I'm just going to make sure that I can see the chat here, which seems to have disappeared on me. So just give me a quick moment. There you go. Perfect. I like to try to engage all of you as much as possible in the chat, mostly because I can't see anyone here. I have no idea what's going on, and I want to be sure that I'm answering questions along the way. So if you are willing and able right now, give me a little hello in the chat. Let me know that you have it open and that you'll be able to engage with me during this conversation today. Thank you. See, I feel so much less alone. You're very quick to get on it, and that makes me feel so much better. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, yeah, we're excited to have this chat today. Creating engaging content is the easiest, but also the most difficult thing. How do we create engaging content? How do we get people excited about the things that we're sharing? How do we build community through this content? The basics are actually quite simple, but how do we put those into action and make sure that we're doing that regularly? That's what I'm hoping to cover with you today so that you can feel good about creating all of this content. So let's jump in. Oh. So right now, if I asked you how engaging your content is, in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being yes, you feel you're doing a great job, and 1 being I don't think I'm really nailing it right now, show me in the chat how you're feeling about the content that you're sharing and if it's really reaching your audience the way you want it to. So we're seeing some good numbers here. I feel like a 5, 7.5, 6, 8. So that's pretty good. A few of you say maybe a little bit lower. 1, haven't started yet. That would mean engagement is low, but that's perfect time to start having this conversation. So that's great. It's great to acknowledge that there's always room for improvement. And the reality is that the tools that we use today, they're changing. They're changing so quickly, and how we use them and the new features that come into play really play into the engagement that we get. If you think back very simply, something like Instagram. Instagram was primarily an image app where we would share photos and we would engage content or our audience through there. Eventually, we were sharing more graphics, carousels came into play, then video came into play, but then we added stories and reels and all these different pieces that are available to us. So we're constantly having to change how we engage our audience. And the reality is that even what we're talking about today, while I'm sharing some basic principles that I think you can carry through in a lot of different ways, it's going to change. It's probably going to change in the next couple of years, in the next 5 years, and definitely in the next 10 years. We're really going to see changes in how we engage. So I think it's important to acknowledge that these things are always happening. And as a business owner, if you are not tasking your social media content to an agency or to other, an in-house person, it's important to know that you're constantly going to have to learn and evolve with the tools that exist. And that can be really overwhelming. And I know for myself, when I think of where, all these tools are going, some days it's like, where does it end? And it doesn't. It just continues to evolve. So my hope today is that you walk away feeling like you have some basic understanding and you can stick to some key principles. If you were in my session the last time, we talked a lot about making sure that you do one platform really well before you start adding, a bunch of different ones. And I think today that will become clear for a reason, because there's just so many elements to making sure that you're creating engaging content. And it's not as simple as just, there was probably a time where we were able to just post. They called it the post and pray. You just post and pray that it gets somewhere and people see it. But today really requires intentional thinking. And my hope is that we can change your perspective on that today and hopefully get you going in that right direction. I see a question here. If it changes so fast, how do we keep it up and how do we stay with it two-way? Then that's the thing. We're constantly having to learn the tools and the evolution. But I think what we need to not lose focus of is that the principles of connecting online and building community have always remained the same. It's the delivery of how we do that. So it was really easy at one time when it was, you could share a photo and that was relatively easy enough. You could take a photo, you didn't have to edit it, you could share it, and it would probably go the distance. Where today you need to plan things a little bit more. If you want to put out a reel and you want it to make it really fun and engaging, you have to think about it. What would make sense for this reel? What would be fun for our community? So we're going to go through all those types of things today, and hopefully it'll inspire you to just take my goal is that you take a look at your content and how you show up online a little bit differently. So before we jump into that, if again we're just meeting for the first time or virtually through this presentation, my name is Karen Faltones. I'm the business and brand strategist at Mellow Brew Marketing. So we do everything from web design and strategy for our clients, and I'm also in the process of a new project, the Work Vacay, where I'm teaching business owners to take breaks to work on their business. I've been working with business owners for nearly 15 years, so everything I'm sharing with you is in hopes that you see it in the most basic, the basic way, because I know you're busy. I know there are so many tasks at hand. And I know it's not always reasonable to believe that you can hire someone to take on the role of social media. If you're in a role right now where this is your responsibility, you might be limited to the tools and resources you have. So I I just hope that this presentation resonates with you in a way that you feel comfortable executing, at least in the very basic way. So today, how we're going to fill your cup is we are going to start by identifying, thinking about what your unique brand voice is. And really, that is the foundation of a lot of what we're going to talk about today. And I don't think enough business owners take the time to understand what their unique brand voice is and how to follow that through. We're going to talk about utilizing effective visuals. What does that really mean? Storytelling techniques, and then we're going to talk about engagement strategies to keep people excited, to keep coming back to your page and engaging with you. So, for this conversation today, just keep in mind we're going to shift Mellow Brew from an agency to a coffee shop, and this will be kind of our example today. So, I find it sometimes a little bit easier to share an example, and then we can kind of follow through this whole presentation today, giving you an example of the Mellow Brew coffee shop and how we would apply these four conversations that I'm going to have today with you, starting with identifying your unique brand voice. So in the chat, can you tell me in this group right now, how many of you feel that you do have a strong and unique brand voice? And how many of you feel like you've made an effort to make sure that that is well known? A slow moving on the chat right now. So I'm wondering, oh, an 8. Okay, we've got some yes, yes. People are feeling good. What does it mean to you when you talk about unique brand voice? When I talk about having a very the goal again is to, oh, I'm already seeing yes, widespread as we would like. Not as widespread, sorry. We trademarked our brand to two logos, okay? So the brand voice is a lot of things to consider, and we're going to jump into that right now. So what is really a brand voice? And it really is about having a distinct personality and emotions in the way we communicate with our audience. And I think we automatically, we're having conversations right now about social media, but this really follows through everything that you're doing. If you're doing ads, if you're sending email marketing, wherever you are, you want to keep a little bit of a coherent brand voice. We always use our logo, consistent color schemes. I find it interesting that we're going to like the identities of our brand voice. And really what the brand voice is the tonality of everything that you do. And as you're going to see in the example I'm going to show for Mellow Brew Coffee Shop, we're going to be leaning into a playful brand voice. And that is something that we can carry through our entire marketing. And if you haven't identified an actual voice for your business, it's important to take a moment to think about what is that? What would your audience most connect with and relate with so that you can kind of speak in this tone in everything that you do when you show up. It really differentiates you from the competition. So if everyone is just posting the same way all the time, it's hard to feel like there's a distinction. But if you can be unique in the way that you deliver with your unique brand voice, you can really connect and have, a better community base based on the fact that it's different when they're with you. They feel a connection in a very different way. It also helps you build that trust and recognition in your followers. So if you're spending your time online and you are having a playful voice and it is always this fun energy and this, playful tones, we remember that. We remember this brand as a place that we can go and have fun with. So if I pose this question to you again, do we still feel like we have a unique brand voice and we've stayed true to it? And brand voices can look different all around. You could have a very serious tone depending on the nature of your business. You could have a very educational tone. You could even have a theme tone. Maybe there's something very unique that you're doing. But I'd be curious to know if there's anyone here who feels like, oh yes, we actually have a very specific tone in our business or in our brand right now. A few less comments, so I'm wondering if we're not quite there yet. Some yes. Sometimes yes, but generally the struggle, okay? So that's good. That's why we're here today. We're trying to identify all these things, so we're going to work through that. So how to maintain consistency in a brand voice and finding a way to do that. One of the best ways is to have a guide to outline the tone and the language for the communications. Now, when we talk about a style guide, we usually think about this guide that has the branding, the colors, the fonts, even the tone falls into that. But really, just having a place where you can identify very specific things that you want you or your team to follow in that guideline, and just having this marked down in a Google Doc even is a good start. Having an opportunity to sit down and think, how do I want to show up in the tone and the brand voice that I'm creating, and how can I do that consistently? And if you outline that, it's easy to transfer that information from one person to the next. I'm sure some of you have either experienced it or seen it when you're following a brand online or a local business and the content is the same all the time, and you kind of, you build that trust like we said earlier, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a new staff member or it's a new partner that takes over the social content and it changes. You can see a visible change in how the content is delivered. Is that good? Is it bad? Maybe they're trying something else. I can't really tell right now based on an example, but it is important to keep that consistency, especially if you're gaining momentum with a particular brand voice. So identifying that, writing it down, and having some type of a guide that you can follow, super helpful for everyone. You want to train everyone also on that voice guideline or that brand voice. And again, like I said, that follows through in everything that we do. That could be even in the tone that your staff takes with clients and customers who come in. If I'm going to share an example again of Mellow Brew having that, or the coffee shop having the playful brand voice. And as an example, if I'm very playful online all the time and people join me and there's a lot of playfulness happening and we're joking and there's this really fun energy, and then people walk into the coffee shop and it's very somber and there's just not a really great energy and people aren't very friendly. There'd be a huge disconnect in what we're experiencing online and in person. So the brand voice really carries across all platforms, but also with everywhere that you are, there's an experience, right? And you have to keep revisiting and updating that to make sure that it evolves with you and your audience. You may start and one particular direction might seem like the right way to go. And usually that's pretty organic. Maybe you just started sharing things very, you know, just in a very basic way about your new business, and it's kind of carried a tone that's not doesn't really have a huge identity, but really thinking about it and saying, okay, well, moving forward, I want people to have this experience, and then checking in every now and again to make sure that you're really staying on top of that or making changes if your business evolves in one way or another. Has anyone here seen a shift? Again, in the chat, have you seen a shift over time? Has anyone ever felt the need to change how they show up and how they deliver a message online, or do you feel pretty consistent all the time? I would love to see if anyone's experienced that. Again, brand voices, I'm seeing pretty consistent from someone here. Ian, yes, with a few social media contact, pretty consistent. Okay. So as long as we're staying consistent, that's good. As long as we continue to review it, super, super important. Now, if we go to our example of the Mellow Brew coffee shop in this playful brand voice, here are we're just going to go through some examples of what that might look like. So lighthearted and witty tone that brings a smile to the audience faces. We want to be lighthearted. We want to have fun with that. We might use playful puns and coffee-related humor to make the messages memorable. And, we might lean into that quite a bit, but people become, used and accustomed to knowing us for that. It would be friendly, it would be approachable, the language that invites customers to enjoy their coffee and their chat and the people that they're with. So you really want to create that kind of environment that is playful online and offline. Now, the benefits to a playful brand voice, it fosters a welcoming environment. It's inclusive. It would appeal to a wide range of customers. It would encourage customers to engage through loyalty programs and humors and that relatability. If I open the door to humor and fun, my customers and my clients will feel like it's possible. And it will differentiate you from other coffee shops so that you're not like everywhere else. And we see that from different places. I think the local Starbucks in our region, it's wild to see when you walk in there and they're breaking out into song and dance. It's happened. I think it's one of those unique things that I know about this particular coffee shop in our region. You could always be up for a good time, and you might be surprised that these fun and wild things happen. But it's become really part of their brand voice and their team, and they really follow through that experience of ordering the coffee and experiencing while you're sitting there having your chat with a friend or doing work in their coffee shop. Sorry, I'm seeing some notes here. You were not sure it was working, but you're consistent now. What if you have different audiences, young or old, and events or individuals? If you have, you can have a wide range of an audience. It doesn't have to be, there's always some variations in our audience, but the tone of it should really identify with the key people that are really doing business with you. And I know that's a difficult conversation because we don't want to exclude anyone. We're talking about business. We want people to come here and we want people to spend their money with us. But realistically, there's a key person, your ideal, persona. I'm sure you've done plenty of exercises on that to identify your avatar, your ideal client avatar. That's who you should be speaking to. That's who you want to create a brand voice for. The people who are making the decisions, the people who are taking action, who are engaging with you, spending money with you. The reality is you are a business and you do want to have those interactions. That doesn't mean that you can't have some playful pieces or different pieces for a younger audience. Something that maybe your key or your unique avatar would be sharing with their community. But you really want to stay true to one voice and you don't want to be shifting everywhere. If you're having conversations for a younger audience and then you're going to an older audience, the message isn't as clear. So I think if you're staying true to who is really engaging with you and purchasing from you, that's kind of where you want to start. So how are we feeling about brand voice? Where are we at with that now? Right off the bat, are you thinking of a brand voice that works for you? And I would love for you to just drop that in the chat. If you were thinking of how you deliver your content, is it whimsical? Is it educational? Is it playful and fun? What are you thinking? Do you see your content being delivered? I feel like we're thinking about it. Not too many comments just yet. And that's okay. It's not something that should be taken so lightly. It's something that you really should be thinking about. Spontaneous, educational, operational. I love that response, educational and operational. It's clear there's a very specific type of audience that really would appreciate the delivery of content in that way. And that's why it's so important to know who you're speaking to. Whimsical and creative, serious and mysterious. I like the serious and mysterious. I wonder what you're doing for work. Factual for engagement. So again, it sounds like everyone is really identifying what might make sense more on the educational side, welcoming, but get them thinking. That's great. So I really want you to put an emphasis on thinking about what engagement or what your brand voice would look like, because it really does carry on into the different pieces of what I'm sharing with you today, and you follow that through in everything that you deliver. So as we go into a conversation about utilizing effective visuals, we're still going to pull that brand in. We're still taking that voice and coming in with the visuals. Our coffee shop, we're talking about being playful. I'm going to be able to bring in some playful visuals to make that fun. So asking the group again, when it comes to visuals, how confident are you with what you're sharing right now? Do you have good quality imagery? Does it match the tone of what you're doing? Are you using just stock or have you invested in brand photography? I would love to know what you're doing there. So yes, the answer is yes. We are feeling good about our photography. Are you using stock primarily, or are you investing time into either brand photography or, you're really taking the photos yourself? A photographer, great. Stock and AI. Curious to see how well that's working for you when you're using specifically that content. Always updating. Yes, using photos from your plants and your flowers, excellent. Self photos, I think that's great. The more you can learn and get accustomed to using our devices take the most beautiful photos. Learn to use your device. You can do a lot with it. A mix of action photos, stock. I do my own. Look at you guys answering about photos. I love it. Um, Stock photos, people pics on land. So there's a lot going on here, which is really, really great. And I love hearing that you're taking the time to do it. Again, the tools that we have are amazing. And the more we become comfortable, it can be uncomfortable at first when you're taking photos of yourself, your team, your staff, whoever it may be. But the more you do it, the more comfortable it gets. And like the whole world is doing it now. So it's not like it was 5, 10 years ago when we wondered like, oh, how much is too much? No, we need more. The more you have, the better it is. Um, Lots of stuff coming in here still about professional photos and reels, also using more amateur photos for behind the scenes. Yes, love stories. Stories can be very behind the scenes and organic. And there is a good balance between doing some really high professional quality visual stuff and some everyday. And there was a time where the effective method was to get, a branding photographer in and taking some really great photos and visuals. But with TikTok really took the world by storm by being a very natural kind of content-based space where, things weren't perfectly polished. That really trickled into Instagram with Reels. Of course, the stories on Instagram have always kind of felt a little bit more organic that way. But more and more, even the largest companies are using more of that organic content that feels a little less perfect as the driving force behind a lot of ads, even. So there is a lot of value in just learning to use the tools that you have and creating that content. So let's talk a little bit about the types of visuals that you can incorporate. So you can use a mix of images, infographics, videos, GIFs to keep, everyone engaged and finding the content fresh. I'm seeing more things here. Maybe a question. How to do testimonials where clients send in their own reels? Yeah, if you can get videos of your clients speaking on video and creating reels like that, absolutely. Any kind of video content. There was a time where I used to, years ago, when I'd have workshops, I'd say, have your device on hand and everywhere you are, just take photos and snapshots. You never know when you'll be able to use that content. And now I feel like we're there with video. Every chance you get, if you can take a clip of a staff member doing something, or you're doing something, you're working in your workshop, or whatever it is, your space, just capturing that content for a later time can make it super, super helpful to have this content. But when it's high quality, brand specific visuals that align with your message, yes, it can absolutely enhance the professionalism of your post. And there is a place for that. I think there's a good balance between that and the organic content. But when we talked about earlier how I said it's so important to find one platform and do it really well instead of 4 or 5 platforms all over the place, is because a lot of this takes work. If I asked you to create an infographic right now, how confident, even a show of hands right now, if I asked you to go and create an infographic to share some type of information with your audience, how long do you think it would truly take you to create that infographic? I would love to see in the comments what you really exactly, right? The first answer, like 2 hours for one post, one visual that is creating. Exactly, hours more. It takes time. It won't even happen. I like the honesty there. Like it's just these things require a lot of work, which is why when I think about as business owners or people who are working in a space where resources are limited, we have to be realistic. If you have 2 hours to create content for the week or whatever period of time frame you have, you want to make the most of that time. So if you're doing this on all these different channels, it's a lot of work. But when we're talking about engaging content, and I hear this a lot, like, oh, my content's not doing what I want it to do, but you're just doing the easy stuff, the on the fly stuff. So, yeah, when we're talking about creating content that's more engaging, you have to take the time and you have to think of these things. So that's not always an answer we like to hear, but it's about being realistic. Are you creating an infographic every day or one a week? No, that's doesn't need to happen either. But just having a mix of all of these things, and sometimes it can be really simple and it can be really fun, but I'm not taking at all for granted the fact that it does take time to create all of these assets, which is why, it does require time and energy to have a plan. And we do really encourage you to sit down and think about what your social strategy is, because you can have all the success you want with a plan and executing that one thing at a time. And so I'm kind of veering off into strategy, but I do believe that there is merit to really thinking about those things, because when we're thinking about visuals to incorporate, if we really want those to be as engaging as possible, we need to think about all the pieces that come into our strategy. So we're going to move on though with visual piece. Um, Tips for selecting impactful images and how you can best do that. There's a fly here, so please apologize me if I'm just not just shooing random things away. So you want to choose visuals that are relevant to your content and resonate with your audience. So we want good, striking images that make sense. And I know this sounds super basic, but still today people struggle to choose the right things that really captivate. Think about when you're holding your device and you're just scrolling and you're scrolling and you're scrolling. What does it take for you to stop? What does it take for you to engage? Our attention span is so limited now because there's just so much available to us that we really need to be, something needs to be striking when we see it. And we need to feel, especially if we can keep a consistent look, then our audience knows it comes from us and they're kind of stop in their tracks, especially if they love your product or your service. They will stop and they will connect with it if you can create some type of consistency in that delivery. You want to make sure that your images are of good resolution and they're optimized for different platforms. So how you share on, an Instagram reel might be different than what you share on LinkedIn. It will probably be different than what you share on Facebook. Again, when I talked earlier about not being on all the platforms, that's why it can be very overwhelming to do all the different pieces. But we want to make sure that we're optimizing things at the best level. One perfect example is probably the carousel on Instagram. When you share a carousel on Instagram, you flip through, right? I think you can share 20 now, 20 images that you can flip through very easily with the swipe of a finger. Where on LinkedIn, if you were to post those same slides, you actually have to click in and scroll. It's very different. It's a very different experience unless you download those images as a PDF. You can actually upload a PDF to LinkedIn, and all of a sudden it does scroll through the right way. So the tools just work differently and need different things. And it's just important to acknowledge that so that you can make a plan accordingly. And then incorporating brand colors and logos subtly to maintain your brand identity without overpowering the messages. So you want to be able to do that. If you're doing a brand photo shoot, excuse me, I remember doing a brand photo shoot for clients, and we always send these ideas of like, here's how you need to plan for your shoot, plan for your attire, make sure you're comfortable, all these things. And we always have a little highlight about the colors that you wear. And I remember a client saying, it was so funny that you said this. It never dawned on me that we should show up wearing colors that match our brand. She said that she had a closet full of these really bright colors because she loves to wear bright yellows and pinks and oranges every day. But the brand that they were photographing for was very muted. So if you're thinking about creating elements, taking photos for your website or whatever, you want to make sure that the tone really matches the whole brand voice and image, and that helps create consistency. Again, sounds super basic, but sometimes very easily overlooked. I'm just reading a note here. My biggest ways to connect is word of mouth and in person, but I'm hoping to use social media to start those conversations for those that I have not met. I've always said that social media is like a great big room of people, but instead of 50 people at a networking event, there's potential for hundreds or thousands. If you can carry yourself the same way you do in person, and you should go check out the last presentation if you weren't there. We talked about just the different conversations to have online, and they really are just conversations that we have in person. I still believe to this day that word of mouth referrals and in-person connections are really hard to beat when it comes to the online stuff. But there is a huge opportunity to make bigger connections online so that when you walk into the next room, there's already an established connection with someone, and it makes it easier to kind of pick up where you left off online. So there is a huge opportunity to do both, which is why I do believe there is so much merit to taking the time to build online. There's a place for it, especially if you're trying to grow your audience and your following and your business. So I'm going to keep scrolling over to choosing effective visuals for our coffee shop. So what would that look like? So aligning visuals with a bland, playful tone to ensure consistency and clarity. Here's a funny image of a dog with a coffee cup having his breakfast. Maybe this has a playful personality and tone for this brand. You want to include visual and elements like emojis, maybe quirky fonts and cool graphics so that you can stay with that vibe. If you are very playful with your brand voice, chances are the fonts and the overall branding is also playful. So use those when you're creating content on Canva or wherever you're creating your content. And then ensure visuals are optimized for the various platforms to maintain that consistency. And so, yes, you want to create that funny piece, but you do want to make sure that you're creating that consistency for the different platforms. Now, the types of visuals that you can use, and here are some examples. So, bright and bold imagery. So, you might use images that are vibrant and reflect the energy and fun of the coffee shop. Again, creating infographics that are playful, that they are funny information about the coffee or brewing methods or customer stories. You'll want to share, lighthearted gifts, coffee-related memes. All of these things can be super helpful. For your video content, producing short, quirky videos, showcasing behind the scene moments, barista tips, your customer testimonials, and I'll add a humorous twist to it. That can all be super fun and super playful. And the funny stuff is usually kind of the easiest stuff to capture, to be honest. I think of my sister and my brother-in-law who own a company. They make fish oils. And my mom works for the company. And my mom is just, she's in her mid 60s, doesn't use the tools, but she is at the focus of their social content because they take a lot of humorous content of her behind the scenes where they'll stop and they call her Coletti. Hey, Coletti, it's time to do a video. And then she'll like look from her glasses and it's just very funny, like, oh, what are you going to have me do now? And they have her do these funny things. And she's become a little bit of a personality through their business. So have fun with that. Really, really engage the people around you and don't be afraid to use this kind of organic, non-polished, fun visual content. I'm seeing some comments here. What about accessibility guidelines for fonts over photos and that are hard to see? There in our tools now, there's a lot of different options so that you can see. And I believe Canva has this now where you can actually click to see how things would come up for accessibility guidelines and just making sure that, different perceptions of how you would see the graphic. So I think those are absolutely important and you do need to follow those guidelines. But when we're talking about fonts and like you said, over photos, they're hard to see. We don't necessarily want you to, it could be as simple as you using like a colored background, kind of like this screen here, like we're using colors in different ways and layering them in different ways. So yeah, if you're putting anything over images, most of the time that doesn't work out super well. That's design. There's a lot of design principles to consider there. But yes, you want to make sure things are legible and easy to read and utilize those features in Canva that allow you to make sure that things are accessible and viewed properly. So now we're taking in again that brand voice. We're following it through with visuals to make sure that it stays with the same tone. And now we're talking about storytelling techniques. And I know that you've probably heard about storytelling a million times for social media and what that looks like. How many of you feel like you're utilizing storytelling really well right now? Are you using storytelling in your content? Does it feel like everyone's doing it and you're not sure how to do it? Boo, no. No, boo because you don't like it, or boo because you are not doing it because you can't. Just a bit, wish you could improve it. No, storytelling is often very difficult if you're not if you're not comfortable writing. Like we think of story like actually writing down, but there are a lot of ways that you can do that without writing a compelling, story one by one, so or line by line. Um, Sherry says, no, not competent enough to write. So I think that's just a comfortableness. First of all, I want to know that with the tools now we have like ChatGPT and AI, you can really put your thoughts down into this tool and they can really sort your ideas out. So if you're struggling with that, that's just a tip to look into how you might be able to benefit from the use of those tools. But let's go into some storytelling. Elements and some ways that you can incorporate that a little bit better into your content. So you want to have a clear narrative of the structure and consistency from the beginning to the middle to the end. So like a story, if you're going to have a post, you want to start with something, give the meat and potatoes, and end that usually quite often with a call to action. You want relatable characters and concepts that your audience can connect with emotionally. There's still a whole lot of connection that needs to be happening, and there's a lot of emotion that plays into content. Think of all of the things that you scroll by and you stop and listen to because you think, oh wow, this touched me in a certain way, and you want to explore it a little bit further. All of that stuff really matters. And then, of course, hooks. We talk about hooks a lot. You see a lot of content about hooks that captures your attentions right away to get people to stop so that they see value or insights from you immediately. So these are just kind of some elements of compelling storytelling. And how we can use them is to leverage personal experiences or customer testimonials to humanize the brand. You use your stories to demonstrate how your brand solved problems or fulfilled the desires of your customers, all very important. And of course, encourage the user-generated content. So anything that your community is creating, using that content and repurposing it with a story element. These are all different places that we kind of forget that we can pull our stories from. It doesn't need to be, hello, good morning, welcome to my Facebook page. Today I want to talk to you about this very particular story. No, the testimonial side of things could be like, hey, this is Karen. She came to our shop today and she was looking for this particular product or service. We didn't have any left in stock, but we managed to find this thing and she's super excited because this will help her do X, Y, and Z. If you're struggling with this, connect with us. We might have some. So it's really just decomposing these moments and these things that are happening in your business day to day and sharing them in a way where people will say, oh, wow, I identify with that. I have this same challenge. I could benefit from this product or service. So we really want to do that a lot more in our content. So again, we're going back to our coffee shop and elements of a playful story. So here, we could have little anecdotes to capture the spirit of the company brand. We can create stories that revolve around everyday coffee adventures or mishaps, inviting customers to see the lighter side of life and the coffee shop life and work and all the things that we're juggling. You can even introduce quirky characters, sorry. Like I was speaking earlier about my mom who's doing this content for my sister's company. She's become really this character where when they go to trade shows and they go to CHFA, one of the biggest natural health food event across Canada, people are asking, how's Coletti? Is she really like, does she really work there? What I need to know more about her. People really love that piece because it's a story that they want to be part of. So how do you implement that? Well, you can share relatable, funny stories of anything that's happening in your space, but the coffee shop in particular, making the coffee the hero of the story, inspiring people to smile and have a better day. You can even craft a series of posts that follows the narrative of, the day in the life of a coffee bean. And then just kind of playing through that, capturing content to make that really fun. It's really difficult to give you clear examples in your space right now. So I am asking you to think about how that might be, what kind of storytelling you can do in your space. But it works. I think of another gentleman who I follow on LinkedIn. I've met him at several social events. He has taken to dubbing his head into all kinds of content, celebrity content, so red carpet and different events, and he always like dubs his head next to Brad Pitt or Harrison Ford, and he has a storytelling, and it's so humorous. And this is LinkedIn, a place that is most commonly thought to be a very serious platform, and he has the most ridiculous engagement. People love to see it. They love his quirky side. This works for him, might not work for you, but what I'm trying to say is think outside the box. There are a lot of opportunities to stand out. And it's funny because the very content that will make you stand out is what makes you truly unique, those qualities that you have. And those qualities are all the things that we're hiding from people because we're afraid of being different. So if you take anything from this is to be different, to try the different things. There's so much noise online that if you can stand out in a crowd, that's what you need to do. That, like I said, the thing you're afraid to do is probably your ticket to getting more engagement and to getting more people to know who you are, what you're about, and learning to connect with you. So, when we're thinking of storytelling, are you hopefully right now thinking of, are there the wheels spinning for you? I'd love to see in the comments of things that you might be able to do differently. Are there things that you're thinking that you might be able to create to tell a better story? And it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest part, especially if you're struggling to kind of put together that beginning, the middle, and the end. But this is where, there's a lot of scary things when we think about AI, but this is a great place for AI. You can dump your thoughts on ChatGPT and say, can you make this a small story, like a story post for my Facebook post? And they'll take all the elements. You'll probably still need to make a couple of edits, but they'll take the guesswork out of how to create that compelling story. So I hope that you go and use those tools and you find ways to help them work for you. Finally, I'm realizing we're just running through time here, so I'm just going to jump into engagement strategies. So here are some strategies to help when you're doing all these things. You've got your voice, you've got great visuals, you're doing some storytelling. Now, what can we do to just get a little bit more strategic with all of this? So, asking open-ended questions in your posts to provoke thought and discussion. Ask your audience things. Tell them to respond in the comments. Again, we're scrolling through so many things, but when we invite people to engage with us, they likely will. And maybe not on the first post, the second post, but if you make it routine to try to engage people, they will engage with you, and it will become a community, and it can be really amazing what can grow from it. Implementing polls and surveys to invite feedback from your guests, your audiences. So maybe if, again, we're talking about this coffee shop, maybe we're thinking of introducing a new beverage, but there's really only one spot on our roster or our budget to bring in like new equipment or new ingredients. So we put on the list, which one would you like to see more? People tell you what they want, and then you can move forward with that. And that's really great. And they feel like they have a say in how that happens. Hosting live sessions or Q&A segments. There used to be a lot more of this before we had reels and more dedicated video content. You would see a little bit more of these live events. People have really pulled away from them, but they are so effective. I have some clients and some colleagues who have this amazing live strategy where they sell product, like crazy amounts of products in live sessions, really engage people to take action to buy their product or service. There is a lot that can be done with the lives. Find a way to really bring your audience in and connect with you during that period of time where they can really connect with you. Think about the celebrities in the influencer world when they go live and how the audience at this massive level just want to be part of their space and what they're doing in the community. You can do it on a smaller level. It's much easier to manage, and it's a really great way to build relationships. Now, how are we building community through that engagement? We have to consistently respond to comments and messages to show that we value, the commentary. So if you're going to put out a poll or ask questions, maybe the next post after that is acknowledging all the comments and the feedback that you receive. People like to believe or to know that they are heard and that you are really taking, what they're saying into account. Create communities or groups around common interests, of the brand. So if you, I'm thinking again, the coffee shop, you could have a Facebook group and it's just everyone sharing, coffee humor. Is it realistic to say that you can engage a group to keep that going? Maybe not, but there are some key places where a Facebook group and a very unique community can be super, super helpful. It feels a lot safer. I know the few groups that I'm a part of, I operate one for the work vacay. It's like this little bubble because you can share, you can be part of it, but it's not accessible to everyone. You have to be a member in that group. So there's a lot of value there. And then, of course, encourage people to share their content. Not only for them, you want them to share about, their experiences with you, but you can repurpose that and really just create a community spirit. There are a lot of brands, you order a package, you open it, and the first little card, it says like, unbox with us, show us your unboxing. We would love to see how you're experiencing this. That is really an effort to engage communities and to create that user engaged content. And there's a lot of value in really engaging your audience to do that. Is anyone here currently doing anything? The polls, the questions, are you doing groups? Um, any of this stuff? Are you putting any of this into play right now? I'm hearing terrific ideas, which I love to hear and I appreciate it. Are you doing it already? I'd love to see if there's any comments on that. Sometimes questions or polls, those are like kind of the go-tos right now. They're a lot easier to do. Don't shy away from doing those regularly. People really love to engage in that type of content. So, strategies for community building. Here are some examples for our coffee shop. We can host fun events. So, having something in-house where people come together, that's a great way for people to meet each other. That is always super, super helpful and helps with the online content. When people can meet in real life, then they are more apt to engage with you online after the fact. You want to engage and encourage participants to get involved in the community and the playful activities. So, naming a new drink or sharing their coffee stories, recognizing them publicly to boost engagement. I got really into golf this summer. I think I played almost 50 rounds. I really enjoyed getting out there and trying to do better. And I started to follow all the different golf courses that I visited. And then I started to see, when they would post that someone got a hole in one on a hole, like people love to smile with their ball saying, look at me, I got a hole in one. It's such a great thing. And it's a great way to build community and bring people into your content. And then launching, social challenges or campaigns where customers can showcase their coffee creations, maybe of their own, or share their coffee. There's just a lot of ways to engage people that way. We ask our customers their thought on new product ideas. Yes, the more those are the people buying your things. You want to ask them, you want to engage them as much as possible. So fostering playful online presence. So we want to interact like in a lighthearted way, using social platforms to engage our audience, responding to comments again, and the polls. We want to make sure to do that. We want to celebrate the contributions, making them feel valued and part of the coffee shop family. I know there are places that you walk into and it feels like home. It feels like you could do no wrong there. They're your people. People want to feel like that. They want to feel like that about your business as well. And again, in the coffee shop context, we can have quizzes, use GIFs and memes, and all the different things to keep the online community lively and entertained and keeping them excited. I feel like Meg is nearby, about to cut me off for some questions. We are pretty much to the end. I feel like I jam-packed way more than I should have here, but I do feel that these four elements are really, really important. And I think you can see by the end of this chat now that that unique brand voice just really carries through the whole way. And that's why it's so important to make that distinction. So when we're thinking about engaging content, I think you I know when I host a lot of these sessions, everyone's looking for the answer, like, what is it that I need to do? Do I need to do more reels? Do I need to do more video? Do I need to do like, yes, the answer is yes. The top marketers of the world will tell you if you can produce 20 pieces of content a week, that would be amazing. It's not realistic. So if you can take some elements of today, something that resonates with you, something that makes sense for you, try one thing. Try incorporating one thing. Once you see that's going well, it's working for you, or maybe if it's not working for you, try something else. Keep adding, keep pivoting. social media is it's a science experiment. There's always something else. There's always something new. And there's always something to try. And there's no right or wrong answer, but you do need to just leap in, and try it. And please ask questions along the way. There's tons of people who are available to support and, want to see businesses succeed, on this front. So there's Meg.
I've arrived. So I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but now is your opportunity. If you have some questions for Kareen, please feel free to pop them in the chat or the Q&A box at the bottom. We do have a number of additional sessions coming up with Kareen. So if you haven't registered already, you definitely should mosey on over to the RTO9 website. Again, it's just rto9.ca and check out all of the upcoming social media content webinars that we have coming up with Kareen, French and English. So
French
feel
and
free to pop over
English.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think we've just tried all the sessions they're all fluid. They all just kind of follow each other and they build on each other. And I think the next time we're talking about social media strategy, so like actually building a strategy with the elements and the things that we're talking about today. And again, it's really difficult to do this individually or to do this virtually. And I'm sure everyone in the chat and here today is experiencing social media in different ways, but that's why ask the questions and take what you can. Pick what you can from my presentation or anyone else's, that suits you, and start with those pieces.
absolutely. So you do have a question here in the chat from Sherry saying how to frame feedback questions to receive a positive direction.
So if you are you thinking of like in a poll or in a like a survey? Is that what you're kind of looking for in comments? I mean, at the end of the day, people will always have their unique spin and they're always happy to, it's kind of the beauty of social media. There's an opportunity to engage with your opinions and your thoughts, and we don't want that to stop that from happening. Um, it's difficult to say what you're talking about from receive a positive direction from. I don't know if you're posting things and people just, automatically just have negative things to say. Maybe it's just a different point of view. That's really difficult. But I think if as long as we encourage engagement, can acknowledge that somebody might have a different opinion, kind of do it in a way, as long as we're not hurting each other and we're not, the tone and how that is all done is super important. I'm seeing in follow-up comments that we would like to grow. Um, Feedback questions to receive. I think maybe I'm just misunderstanding your question, Sherry. So if you want to elaborate, we'll go to Tara's question and then I can elaborate a little bit more for you. Does it make sense to post on IG every day with the same post as Facebook or create a specific post that may be more graphically interactive? So there was a time where I would have told you definitely don't do the same content from one place to the next. And I think it's all in the data. Ultimately, it's all in the data. So if you look at the analytics of your Facebook page and your Instagram, you'll be able to see when you get the most engagement. So if there's a lot of engagement on Facebook first thing in the morning, but it dies down in the afternoon, then you might do the same content, but different times of day. So that's kind of a starting point. Then there's to talk about like how does your audience engage? If the same posts perform not so great on Instagram, but they perform really well on Facebook, then you might need to change your strategy on Instagram. What's working there? What isn't working there? So there's a lot of stuff, but the data tells you everything you need to know. And I don't think we take enough time to look at that. That is actually a later session we'll also do, which is identifying what you should actually be looking at and what's important and when to look at it. Nobody, I think, likes this answer either because it just feels like, find the data, but like, what is that actually telling me? But it tells you a lot and you'll be able to see the engagement. I think if you're getting fair engagement in both places and you can share the both, then great. I suspect that most of the time makes a difference. And just making sure that you're sharing content. If you're sharing a portrait style image on Instagram, it will show up differently on Facebook. So sometimes the sizing needs to be different. But otherwise, when you're a busy business owner or person with minimal resources, and if you have to be in those two places, it's better to be there than not be there at all. So show up and then pivot as you start to read your data and understand it. We use Later as a scheduling tool. Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of tool you can do. And like in a perfect world, we would like make a plan of our social content for the month. We would list it all out. We would go and schedule it all in. And then for the rest of the month, everything would drop. I know that's not always realistic for everyone, but there is a lot of value to that. And you have to do what feels right for you. If you want to see growth, you want to see more engagement, it's going to require work. The reality is like we are there. 10 years ago, Facebook was all yours. You could do anything there and you'd get engagement and you'd be pushed through. Today, we're competing with a lot. So, yeah, you want your content and your community to grow, you have to put time into it, and we need to stop making it kind of a an afterthought. And if you're okay with where you are, and you can acknowledge that the cards you're holding don't allow you to do more than what you're doing, that's okay too. Just know, be realistic with where you are and accept that, and maybe schedule time for growth and figuring out a plan to do more later. But really is we just need to know for ourselves what it is we actually have time and energy to do.
And we'll finish off with the last question here from Cindy
Yeah.
that is about paid ads. But she's read that the only way to get engagement is now to pay to boost ads on social media. And what are your thoughts on that, Kareen?
It's so funny. I believe that paid ads has a place, and not knowing enough about your business, I can't really tell if it makes sense for you, and if it makes sense to engage there. Facebook is still the number one place to get a return on investment on ads at a fraction of the rate that we've ever seen. Like it's still very inexpensive to be on Facebook and to do those pieces. Um, but when we talk about content, I think people say that because they feel like, well, my content's not going anywhere, so I have to pay to push it. Nobody likes to hear this, but it's like, bro, I say it to my, to just, it's a very normal conversation to be like, no, our content just sucks now. Like we're just not doing enough because there's so many people out there. And again, we're competing for that. And so if you really take a moment to think about, okay, how much time am I putting to have a true strategy to put out good content that my audience actually wants to see? If we do better, our content does better. If we take the time to plan, it does better. And so I don't think the immediate answer is go and do ads. I think the immediate answer is, okay, what am I not doing right to garner to get that engagement? Why isn't that happening? I found myself there too on different pages where I'm, working on things. I'm like, why aren't we getting anywhere? And it's like, oh yeah, we kind of got stale. It is kind of boring. So we have to change things up and we have to pivot because we've gotten comfortable for a month or two. This worked really well. So we're just going to stay here. No, we can't just stay here. We're constantly moving and evolving and changing. So your content sucks is not the best delivery on that. But and it's really not about sucking. It's just about think about what you want to engage when you see your feed. Would you stop to engage with the content that you're sharing, or would you just go by it? And if you're just like, oh, I'd probably just swing by it, then that's where you're probably at a place where it's good to start thinking about making some changes.
Perfect. Thanks, Kareen. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I know it was a long weekend and coming back to work, the first thing you're going to do is a webinar, but we appreciate you joining us for it. This recording again is going to be available on the website if you want to go back and rewatch it. If you want to contact Kareen with some questions of your own, we'll be happy to share some contact information for Kareen. And thank you, Kareen, for
Thank you.
facilitating on your
Thanks.
first day back to work after the long weekend.
Thanks for having me. No, it's good. I'm just happy that my dogs didn't, have a panic. They were both walking around me the whole time. I'm working from home, so there's a lot happening at my feet today. I'm happy they didn't interrupt.
I was going to say very relatable. I have a new puppy. Something else. But lovely to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you need anything or have any follow-up, please feel free to answer our survey and let us know how it went and what could be improved upon. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Bye.